human design is real. It's got real consequences. And so what we are concerned with is really the safety of that process and making that as safe a process as possible for our clients. And maybe in ways that are safer than when we went into it the first time around for ourselves. So here you can see just a little image kind of charting the journey here of becoming who you are. And that's the proposal, right? Human design isn't really about anything else. It's about becoming who you really are, who you were born to be, right? And given the time and cycle that we emerged in, that we were born into, in the state of the world, there is a deconditioning process for most of us, right? Unless you were raised by your design all the way through, there's a deconditioning process that happens for most of us. And it rides on the back of this kind of this tripartite life that is described in human design, where life unfolds through these three distinct phases. And we have this image here of the butterfly, right? Like the caterpillar, and then caterpillar phase, moving into its chaos, of what happens in the cocoon. It takes place about the 30-year mark here, 29 years of the Saturn return, the Saturn cycle. That's the first stage of life. And then in between, we have all the way up to the Chiron return, the second stage of life. And then the third stage of life that is after, where we really emerge and come to really fulfill our purpose in this life. Right? That's kind of the archetypic image for that in the archetypic process. Then we also look at our chart and we engage with that in human design to decondition, to really recognize, okay, I'm living my life in a way that's not true to me, in a way that's just been, punished and rewarded into me by my upbringings. But now I'm really ready to, stand on my own 2 feet and come out of all of this conditioning, shed it, and find out what it's really like to live as myself. For that, we have the type, strategy, and authority, right? So that happens one decision at a time, according to what your unique design is. And then you have the 4 radical transformations that touch on your diet, your environment, your motivation, and your perspective, right? So that's a deep overhaul of your whole physical process, your body, where you live, how you see, and how you think, right? Your whole psychological process too. That's deep. That's about as deep as you can go, right? And that there is an organic timing to this, where the cells have this organic shedding that's happening over a cycle of 7 years. In the meantime, we experience all those changes, right? And that's kind of where I want to land on here, that this is very complex and intense change, okay? That's something to mark. So as deeply fascinating and beautiful and awe-inspiring that human design is, and I really mean that, the lived experience is also intense with lots of complex information and energy to sort through, especially when you're mostly working through it on your own, right? So how do we come around that? Alana, would you like to say a few words here?
Yeah, so how do we actually experience that change on a biological level? We have 2 competing impulses within our biology that comes up. And one is don't die, survive, stay stable, don't change, right? Keep the system is functioning just fine the way it is here in this little seed, and we're just going to stay here and keep things stable. Then at the same time, we also have, oh wow, a bird that just came on the window, a woodpecker. And then we also have this evolutionary impulse that's also emerging in all of us. It's about growing. And so it's these 2 competing movements that happen. But what's challenging is that the body, like the mind can distinguish, but the body cannot distinguish between these 2 movements of change. It cannot distinguish between that which is disintegrative and that which is evolutionary. So without supportive enough conditions, our system will resist its own transformation. So like with unconscious biases, addictive habits, not self patterns, physical syndromes that just are there to keep things the same. And this is because radical change can be quite dysregulating, disintegrating, and potentially lethal for our system. So if the change is forced, it feels too intense and disruptive to our biological stability. Therefore, the body will opt for adaptive strategies that deal with the intensity, but keep us stuck. In the same way, negative conditioning continually challenges the physiology with high intensity due to amplification and distortion. The body deals with it through adaptive strategies, but it keeps us in resistance with a depleted battery. It's unhealthy and disintegrative over the long term. Now, many of our clients arrive in a double bind, where for the sake of their own well-being, something has to change. But even small changes are too much and can result in kickbacks. This is due to a lack of biological resilience. If we request or advise too much change, the client's system will not be able to make much progress on it because the biology underneath really needs gentle care to access stability and experience growth in a way that doesn't feel like too much change. Our personalities have been wired by high intensity stimulation and conditioning, and this requires a renewed education and appreciation for relaxation and low intensity living. And we provide such care by recognizing and attuning to the different phases and levels of stability that the client's biology might be in. We then help our clients find the resources to support their evolutionary growth in a way that matches their experience. With this particular insight, which is really the foundation of so much of our work, it's really about this, starting, do we want to stay as the seed or do we want to move and grow? And how do we do this? Always coming back to this particular insight, we begin by recalibrating our own relationship to sustainable growth, recharging our own batteries, and stabilizing our own system first. And then we're ready to go out and meet and connect with our clients and bring this to them. Let's see. Can I click that, Hagen, or do you need to? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah. we can wrestle with the mouse here.
Your turn.
Yeah, so thank you. That was really nice. So here's a nice raw quote that really chimes in with what we're presenting today, right? It's about understanding that the mechanism is 99% of it. If you're a personality and you're looking for awakening, well, 99% of that is your body, your brain, your health, your place, your relationship to the world around you, your environment, and your perspective. And so this means tending to everything that's really underneath the surface that makes the awakening possible. Really tending to the biological hardware underneath that's running things. And what we're about to take a look at is how we nurture in our practice that 99% within the scope of coaching by design. Okay. So let's take a look. Oh, is there a question here or? Oh no, Lisa, sorry, I saw your hand and I thought you were raising your hand. No, thank you. So let's take a look at different ways in which that the biology underneath could be operating, okay, in a way that helps us coach better. So first thing to recognize is that the brain and the body can only work with what is within its bandwidth range, what it can actually process, okay? All right, so then final phase here, phase 3, prosilience phase, and you can see here this is the phase of auto-regulation. And we speak to that so much in human design, right? Because this is what ultimately we want to surrender to, is the life happens, right? And the body knows exactly where to go and what to get up to. The body lives the life, all of that. That's a very specific kind of phase 3 experience. And of course, we all have that experience in some variation or some expression or for some stretch of time. And what we're looking for is to really stabilize that and build the foundations for that. Also within that, to see that this is a system that can grow, and it grows through interaction with the world and through feedback with the world, through relationships. It grows in all kinds of ways to build new structure, to develop, to unfold who they are in the world. And the markers for that are basic trust, joy, and what they call here in organic intelligence, nishkam karma, which is basically sense of purpose or felt sense of destiny, right? And we say in human design too, right? Like you live your type strategy and authority, your purpose, your life's purpose that is unique to you will naturally come to emerge. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to try and make it happen. It's part of the natural process. It unfolds. And that's really the process of phase 3 here, where we have an auto-organizing system. It's a system that's no longer under the draw of kind of the addiction to negative high intensities. It's been freed from that. And it's now interested in staying well and remaining organized within itself. And it can improvise to do that. It's kind of connected to that ongoing dialogue with the environment, and it's in sync. All the different parts of the biology are in sync with themselves. So for example, people who come in with like physical syndromes where parts of the physiology are kind of compromising one another, right? I had that, like when Alana met me, I'm in so much better shape now than when she picked me up. You know, I was crippled on one side of my body, like I could barely walk, and there were migraines and things like that. You know, typical phase 1 conditions that, you know, took a long time to heal, and, you know, consistent support and practice. But then eventually, once the system starts to auto-regulate, it knows how to heal these things. It knows how to do that. And so there's a certain basic experience of coherence, where the way my body expresses itself in the world is kind of also synchronizing the way my personality gets to express itself in the world. There's a coherence between what I say and the actual state that I'm living. All of that comes through. And then, yeah, here there's, you know, in NOI, we call it organic intelligence. In human design, we might call it, you know, the design, the inner authority, your body, this organic intelligence that is organizing your experience for you. You don't have to spend any extra effort or energy on the self-regulating in phase 3. That's all now done. That's integrated as part of the system. Your design does it for you. And then there's an experience of balance and being where we have both sides of the coin, the this and the that. In phase 2, there's a lot of emphasis on the pleasure and like on inhibiting the intensities and getting away from, like, you know, the downside of things, right? And it's like, that's a phase that we move through. But, you know, if you're, you know, concerned that your anger and your frustration and all these other pieces that they're going to go away, don't worry, you'll get them back, right? But then you'll be equipped for them in phase 3, and you'll be able to swing them and integrate them and process them so that they don't get stuck in your system or fragment the system because they're too intense, right? And that's such a key. And the experience of that is balance and being able to just have a full experience of living that we can let go into and experience what it really means to be human at this time on the planet, to be yourself, right? And so that's our aim. That's where we're going. Okay, so Alana, please.
That is where we're going. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great. Thank you for mentioning the piece about the frustration and the anger. It's really important. So now phase 3, we've arrived at surrender. Simple life enjoyment is the main course on the menu here. How can we enjoy our lives more and more? And we discover basic trust in life because we have a biological system that auto-organizes all on its own. We have background orientation, we call it online. So there's enough orientation with the system that it just starts to happen on its own. It's not a practice that we have to continually engage in phase 3. Although sometimes we reach for it, sometimes it's really needed in those moments, but we start to develop enough capacity on the backside of that. We're living in a very different system, and we have a very different experience of being. The body has got you. It knows how to navigate the intensities as they come up and come down. The system is auto-regulating. We have the energy, there's our battery, for cultivating better environments for ourselves and for others. And the best news is we have the energy and innate support now for evolutionary growth. That deep change that calls to each of us, beckoning us forward, and we can start to focus on what really matters. Because our system is now experiencing balance and agency and a capacity for integrating chaos creatively, we have something to relax into. Our biology is in sync within itself and with the environment, and is embedded in many systems of belonging from the local to the cosmic. Oh, and look at that. We have a little four-legged friend joining us. So sweet.
Timely.
And in phase 3, our aura really starts to operate correctly as we are effortlessly aligned to our unique design. We have regained the ability to set timely boundaries without violence, excess amplification, or ambivalence in our communication. Yeah, I have a manifestor daughter, an emotional manifesting daughter, an emotional manifestor daughter who's 15, and learning to set boundaries with her without being too difficult, too amplified, or too excess in my communication has been really interesting gift, and something I've really I'm noticing is emerging over in the last 6 months or so. It's really starting. I was just noticing that this morning, actually. I set a boundary with her and I was like, all right, that felt good. And because we're held by a system that knows what to do and where to go and how to improvise. And when we get to work with clients here, we can deal with more complexity and intensity without losing our sense of support, orientation, and enjoyment. Now there is the readiness to work with challenges that were really too much for phase 1 and phase 2 to be able to integrate. And now we are able to surrender into type strategy and authority as something that simply happens, no longer having to effort for it. Our purpose begins to organically emerge. And at this point, there is a homecoming into being, and passenger consciousness dawns. And we look back on our process and we see the lines of continuity all along. The purposeful events, the serendipity, and meaningful relationships that got us here. Yay for phase 3.
Oh.
Oh.